Welcome. This is a very special evening. Marla, come and join us. Perfect timing. Ronit, Kate, come please and join us. As you can see, we are recording this evening, so we can use some of these presentations later on for classes that we're teaching or to share with some people that couldn't join us tonight. And it's wonderful to see all of you. First of all, for me to come and see all of the curriculum and things that were inspired by our seminar, to see the hard work that the participants put together. And this is just a taste of what they're doing back in their school and in their community. But also to have other people from different schools coming and eager to learn and get new ideas. So about 7 years ago, my name is raz1, first of all. I'm the director of the Early Childhood Institute here at Hebrew College. And about 7 years ago, I was asked to lead the Boston-Haifa Early Childhood Connection. And of course, as an Israeli American, the first thing was, of course, yes. Even though without really understanding the impact that this connection is going to have on me personally, and over time on so many people, and I would say even the world. It sounds big, but I'll tell you why. But truly, for me, it was like we all have like different identities, different part of who we are. So for me, growing up in Israel, I moved here 23 years ago. Being Israeli first is a very strong part of who I am. But living here for 23 years, America became also a lot of who I am. So to lead the Boston-Haifa connection was in some way bringing both into peace. Because when I take groups from here to Israel, I go and I share with them the Israel that I love and I admire, and I share with them that. But every other year, we also host a group from Israel here, and then I share with them the America that I love and the Jewish community and the non-Jewish communities and the American history. And we talk about the shared value that both communities have. And as I said, for me, it's kind of like coming into peace and being very fortunate to be able to do both. So this is, first of all, I want to really thank CJP, and Marla Olsberg is here in the corner. Marla is working at CJP, and she's overseeing all of the exchange of school-to-school connections. The day school, religious school, elementary school, high school, I share with her what I'm doing, so I'm very happy that she is here today. So to really see the power of this connection that started about 25 years ago. So I'm not going to get into all of the history of the Boston-Haifa connection. If you want to learn more about it, we have a website with the history and videos that tell all of that, or you can meet with me and I will share more. But I have to say that again, when they came to me and say, would you do it? I said, well, it's a great opportunity. So beside being a good thing for me, there are a few more things that I learned from the Boston-Haifa connection that in some way make me who I am today, and every time help me grow and really add a lot to my life. And for some of you that are already part of that, you know it. For some of you that are not part of it, maybe you would like to think in the future to get more involved. So one of the big benefits, you make lots of new friends. You meet wonderful people, loving, inspiring, that just want to love you and know you and get together. This is actually a picture of our last Shabbat. We celebrated Shabbat in the kibbutz in Israel. And this was the first time that actually husbands and families joined us. Because in the past it was teachers to teachers, director to director, but this time we had the husband coming and the children coming, and it really brought us to a different level. And for some of the husbands, actually the Israelis said to me, you know what, our wives are so always involved with this. They say Boston-Haifa, we're going to Boston, but we never truly understand the power or the important work that you're doing. So we are so thankful to be part of that and see what's going on. The other fascinating things you don't really know, but by looking at the pictures, but we have Israelis, Jews, and we have Israelis, Arab Christians, and we have Arab Israel Muslims as part of the group. And in our group here, we have Jewish teachers and we have non-Jewish teachers. And we're all one big family. And I remember that when we were sitting there, one of the husbands said to me, wow, this is like Am Israel, people of Israel all together. And I said to him, but look carefully. We have the Muslims and we have Christians and we're all here, and we have Mormons that joined us from Oklahoma. And I said, no, we're the people of the world. We have shared values. We think about how to raise our children. We want to have a better world for them. And we're all working together. And they were all like sitting and just like, wow, you know, this is so inspiring. For many of them, even though their wives are working with Muslims and Christians in the school, they don't really have this opportunity sometime in their jobs. So for them, it was so nice to sit there on Shabbat, beautiful sunny day in February, and seeing this, what's going on. So number one, meeting lots of people. Since I moved here, I always had my old friends in Israel, but now I have more and more and more people that I know, and I know so many wonderful people here. So this is a wonderful opportunity. The second thing, so this is also getting together with the families. Another thing is going and seeing so many different, amazing, provoking, different schools, both in the United States and in Israel. Every time that I go and I visit a different school, it's an eye-opening. Sometimes it's asking questions. What are they doing? Why are they doing this? Is this a good thing, or this is a bad thing, or should we copy this? Shouldn't we copy it? Today you're going to hear about the playground in Israel, something about them. You're going to talk about some games that we learned there and some of the teacher brought back. So to go and visit many different schools, like recycling and other things, it's a big question. We also met Gur, that he hosted us in the kibbutz. He is the husband of one of the teachers, and this is his preschool teacher. His preschool teacher in the kibbutz. She hosted us in the kibbutz in their junkyard playground. He has a very high position in Intel. So when he was sitting next to her, I was asking to myself, is this kind of preschool is a good thing? And Melanie is going to talk a little bit about this later on. Do we need to have sterile, clean kind of preschool? Is the state regulations are a good thing or a bad thing? What can we do with them? So to see him loving his preschool teacher and still having this amazing relationship, and he come and he speak about his time really in admiration, was an eye-opening. At this school, actually, when we were walking outside, the couple that joined us from Oklahoma, he used to work in artillery in the U.S. Military, and they had actually bomb shells in the preschool. And he came there, and I was like, what are they doing with this? I said, it's bomb shells. You need to do something with them. You know, they're not so it was like, we're really talking about some extreme, so maybe it is extreme, but it was definitely lots of thing to think about. This is part of their junk playground that they have. Lots of things about education. This is Jerry talking to the kids, and he's going to talk later on about the impact, how Israel really think about value early education. And this is the third thing that I want to talk here that really inspired me. Until I really worked very seriously with the Haifa municipality, and seeing the high level of teachers and professional, like every preschool teachers in Israel must have a BA. They have about 60 hours of professional development a year. They have written curriculum by the best on the best, like STEM education curriculum is written by Nobel Prize winner. Art education is by specialists, and Jerry is going to talk a little bit about that what do we do when we don't have all of these things. And talking and really looking at early education as the foundation of the kids, and I don't need to convince you, you know that what you're doing, the impact for life. And they really invest a lot in that. The government, the Haifa municipality, training parents. And actually this is when I said it might change the world. When I came back, after going back and forth and really learning from them, I said, something is off here in the United States. And I started researching, and I said, you know what, to be a preschool teacher here, you need about 3 classes of education. To be a preschool teacher, you need about 20 hours of professional development a year. Yes. We don't really have a written curriculum. Each school, we reinvent the wheel, or we can create, or we buy some curriculum here and there. We don't really have curriculum. It's very hard. What we're doing here is very difficult. We're trying to reinvent the wheel, and it's very difficult. And also, we're talking about a very changed world. We're talking about a digital world. We're talking about two working parents. We're talking about interfaith families. They're trying to figure out, what do we do? Do we bring Christmas? Do we bring Hanukkah? You know, all of these kind of questions. They don't have, many of them, extended family in the area. They're working two jobs and they're stressed out. How can we help them? There isn't really curriculum to help us to support them. The role of the teacher actually changed. You're not just teaching the kids. How can you support the parents? I know that JCC did a big shift of how to work with parents and families right now, and some other schools are doing that. So I'm not trying to put it in a gloomy way, but actually this has made me do lots of advocacy nationally. To meet with our governor a couple of years ago, with Val Patrick at that time, with our Haifa delegation, and come and said, we need to learn from Israel. I was very fortunate this time. Melanie joined us, and we might go and meet again with Thomas Weber from the Commissioners of Early Education to try and talk about early education and how to raise the standard, but also how to raise this profession in general. How to make sure in Israel, for every professional development you take, you get points for your retirement. How do we make this profession being known as a very important profession in the United States? And I don't want to stop here. Actually, the educators that came with me from Oklahoma, she said that she's already organizing there a group to start doing it in their state, and maybe to even take it to this administration in the White House and try to do something bigger. So this is what Haifa inspired me, but the work here also inspired me. And it sounds big. It didn't start that big. It's just like evolving, but it's very exciting, very, very exciting. So I don't want to take too much time. These are some things that actually impacted me, but there's many, many more, and I'm not going to talk about them. We do have, I want, before we start, to share with you, yesterday was Yom HaShoah. And this poster, if you're not familiar, The Voices and Vision by the Harold Greenspoon Foundation. They also, they're mostly known to preschool by the PJ Library. But the Greenspoon Foundation also have this like poster. It's called Voices and Vision, and this is their third series. And I also, in your program, I did include this quote by Anne Frank. And it says, how wonderful it is that no one has to wait, but can start right now to gradually change the world. And I think that sometimes we can be overwhelmed because we constantly hear, you know, the world is collapsing and things are bad happening and everything is awful. First of all, not everything is awful. There's lots of wonderful things going on. Just look around here and look at the faces in this room. Lots of wonderful things happening. But also, we don't need to start big. Each one of you is already changing the world every morning that you come to preschool. You meet with these kids, you meet with the parents, you're already making a huge difference. So the group that came with me, we asked them to take one leap and not just inspire the kids in their classroom, but inspired all of you. And later on, even inspire more and more people through writing. And we have, later on, we're going to see some books that we're trying to publish and some curriculum that we're trying to develop. So how can we have this ripple effect and affect more and more and more people? But it starts small. So first of all, I want to thank all of you working in education, that making a change in the life of every child and their families. This is one of the most important jobs that it's in the world. Again, maybe it's not valued, but we know how important it is, and we need to make sure that it's more and more valued and appreciated. So, so this is with thinking about Anne Frank, but also in some way leading next week, we're going to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. And in Yom HaAtzmaut, one of the highlight or the rationale that we had to our Israel seminar this year was, if you will it, there is no dream. Im tirtzu en zo agada. This is by Herzl, Benjamin Zev Herzl, when he was thinking about creating the state of Israel. And some of the presenters are going to talk about making the desert bloom through irrigation and through other things. So in some way, this is leading the one step at a time, but we can make wonderful things happen. And even if you have limited of resources, or you feel that you're constrained in what you do, don't give up. We can take one step at a time, and we can make a change. And we are here definitely to help and support you. So I'm going to invite our first presenter for today, and this is Andrea Shapiro. And Andrea, and each one I can tell you, like, I'm so privileged to travel with these amazing people. So Andrea, this was her first time traveling to Israel. She's working at the JCC in Newton, but she's already bringing the idea to take it farther and farther and farther. Another interesting thing that Andrea just started her Master in Jewish Education here at Hebrew College. And Susie is her teacher, yeah? And she's just taking a class with Susie, Bible and Israel, for early education. So she's already, like, some of these videos will go to this class and incorporating and creating curriculum. So for me, it was a pleasure to have you on the trip. And every time that I have new people coming with me to Israel is to see Israel with them for the first time. So thank you so much for coming. And Andrea will present twice tonight. The first one is Shuali Go to Israel, and she's going to tell you what is Shuali, who is Shuali. So I'm going to invite you, Andrea, to come and share with us.
I just want to take one quick second and say thank you to Rachel, because without her, none of us would be here. And she did an incredible job preparing this trip and bringing us all together. So thank you very much. The first part of this evening that I'm going to be presenting is Shuali. Shuali is a fox, and fox in Hebrew is Shuali. And how Shuali came about was a couple of months before we left on our trip. We had one of the alumni teachers come back and present to us what she had done, and she had taken a similar item with her, and that's where I got the idea from. She ended up putting something together for the kids when she came back, and it made it more tangible for the children, and that's really what I wanted to do, to make it more realistic for them. How can I make this something that they're going to remember and something that they're going to want to learn about? So before I left on the trip, I had 3 different stuffed animals, and I had taken each one to all of the classrooms in my school, and I had the children vote on which animal they wanted to see on the trip. And this was the winner. So Shuali came with me on the trip. And Shuali was very well known by everybody, and if I forgot to take him out in pictures, everybody would remind me, you don't have Shuali in the picture. So I ended up putting this book together, which literally shows Shuali's adventures in Israel. It's called Shuali Visits Israel, and I invite you up after to please come and take a look at it. There is a lot of stuff in this book. There's a lot of stuff that I had to leave out because I wanted to make sure that the book was enjoyable. But my goal with this book is actually for teachers as a curriculum starter. That there is enough information in this book that the teachers will be able to read it and be able to pull information out of to jumpstart a curriculum for their children. Which is a couple of the lessons that I've done over here. So we went to the markets in Israel, and for me, scent is a huge memory process, and I know for a lot of other people it is. So every time I've come home and I've cooked with certain spices, it's all of a sudden like a shot of memory that I'm back in the market. So that's what I decided to do for one of my lessons, was the spice market painting. And literally what I did was I picked a bunch of spices that I really liked, that I know that the kids liked, and I put some in paint, and I mixed some with water. So it's kind of a comparison too, to see what will happen to the spices in the paint and what will happen to the spices in the water. A little bit of a design feature there. You know, you can fill a bag with sand, put some spice on top, make it look like a spice market, kind of give it the feel that this is where we were and this is what we were enjoying. Another lesson that I put together was the Gezer calendar. When we went to Gun Karmit, which was a farm school, every day on the farm they invite different classes of children to the school, and they do different lessons with them. And one of the lessons that they did was the Gezer calendar. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but it was a calendar that was used to tell the months of the year, about harvest, all things like that. So the interesting thing about the Gezer calendar is that it's not written in modern Hebrew, it's not written in English, it's written in ancient Hebrew. So this was a little handout that they gave us that had English, modern Hebrew, and the ancient Hebrew letters on it. And we had the opportunity to kind of figure out in English what our name was, in Hebrew what our name was, and then in ancient Hebrew what our name was, which was a really nice comparison to put them side by side. So this is something for 4- and 5-year-olds, even 6-year-old children, that would be a really nice way for them to see their name or a word or their classroom written in a different language. It's a different way for them to expose them to the language, get them used to it. We wrote it on pieces of clay, which is a great sensory way to expose it to the kids. I just wrote Haifa. See if you guys can figure out the letters. And you really could do anything. There's 1,001 things that you could do with this. You could do an entire curriculum just around the ancient Hebrew letters. So my hope with this book is that the teachers in my school will be able to take from it, learn from it. Obviously, I'm there as a resource as they want it, but also just to kind of give them a jump start that Israel is more than Yom HaAtzmaut. Israel is more than celebrating on Shabbat. There's so much more. There's the people, there's the culture, there's the school, there's the children, there's walking down the street, that there's literally everything that they could be looking for. It's enough for an entire year's curriculum that we could be exploring Israel. Cindy smiling in the background there. This was a labor of love and a labor of hate. I love the way that it came out. I hated the process of putting it together because I was so critical of myself in terms of wanting to make sure that I was giving enough to teachers that they would be able to take from it and make from it what they wanted, but not so much that I wasn't making it available to them that they could then choose what they wanted to do. So please feel free to look at it, enjoy Shuali's story and his visit to Israel, and I'm happy to answer any questions later. I am hoping to publish it. That is the plan.
So, yeah. So first of all, if you want to buy it as is, we will tell you how much it is. We're going to order some, and we can print it. We're going to review it, and then we'll try to send it to PJ Library and some other editors. So we're going to publisher. So we're going to try to do it. Another thing she's going to show later, but she made another book about the lion in Israel and Jerusalem. And we're already thinking about some other books. So I know that over the years, I published 2 books, and I'm trying to, in some way, encourage participants that come with me to at least kind of like plant the seeds for them to do it, because there's a need for more and more books like this and make it much more reachable. We also have a wonderful blog that Lina created about our seminar in Israel, and we're going to add to it more curriculum. We're going to add the videos from today. We're going to add pictures, letters for families. Jerry wrote beautiful letters for families. It's up there. So it's going to be a work in progress. So everything we're going to add to it as we move on as a resource. So thank you so much. And I'm going to, thank you. And I would like to invite Sabrina. Sabrina worked at Temple Shalom in Newton, and Johanna, her director, was part of the Boston Haifa for many, many years, one of the veteran. But for Sabrina, it was the first time in Israel. And I have to say that from a day to day, like I saw Sabrina becoming more Israeli or more comfortable with the Israelis and so happy. And it was just wonderful to see her with the kids, with the partners, connecting with Israel. It was truly uplifting for me every time that I saw her expanding more in some way. So it was wonderful. I'm going to put your slideshow.
Great, awesome. Yeah, it really is and I come from a background where I wasn't raised Jewish. I'm not Jewish, but I work at a Jewish school, and I really love it. It's hard to describe how much I love it, but just going to Israel was so special and seeing it, and I couldn't be more grateful for the experience and the people that I got to share it with. So I really recommend the trip to anybody who's thinking about it. If there's any hesitation, I really, if you want to talk more about it, I'm here for that. So the thing that really touched me about this trip was Shabbat. We were lucky enough to spend 2 Shabbats in Israel, so we got 2 very different experiences. Go to the next slide. My own conception when I was thinking about Jerusalem was all the history, and I thought about like all the Jerusalem stone and like the buildings there and everything else, and I didn't picture it as a city at all. I didn't think there would be like stores that were modern and like, I don't know, I figured like candles, like not lights. So, but it is a city, like it's a living city and people live there and they raise their families, and seeing Shabbat there and how people celebrate was really special. When Shabbat's a part of the common culture, it's very different than it is here, and it really brought something real to the way that I teach Shabbat now. It's like your life. It's like the preparation for Shabbat is so real. You see people on the street and they like have their shopping carts to get ready because they need to get last minute groceries. It's like every week it's kind of like, trying to think of like in a comparison, like the day before Thanksgiving. But it's spread out and there's like this thoughtfulness to the way that people live where they're preparing for Shabbat, their day of rest. Something really special to me was my first Shabbat in Israel. We got to visit the Kotel Wall, and that was my first ever visit to the Kotel Wall. I've never been to Israel before, and it was amazing. It was just crazy. Like the energy was so like the sense of togetherness among so many different people. Like you would see Orthodox Jews and they're praying by the wall and they're reading with their like 5-year-old daughter, and there are people that were just like so alive and so happy and dancing and singing and inviting other people in, and like the soldiers dancing together, and it was just really, really special. And it's something that I would definitely recommend to anyone. And I have a blog entry. You can look it up on our website for the trip that we were on, and goes a little bit more into that. The day that I spent Shabbat in Jerusalem, I went walking, and do you remember the name of the?
Mishkenot Sha'ananim. It's the,
yeah.
Yemei Moshe.
And it's like.
Did you see that thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I walk it sometimes.
Yeah? Oh, that's cool. But yeah, we went walking around. It was like all like fruit trees and like families that were with their family and kids playing in the park and by the fountains, and just a really peaceful energy was throughout the city. Like there were like very few cars except for like a cab every now and then. And then we got the next week, we got to visit an Orthodox preschool to see how they prepare for Shabbat at their school. And it was really lively. There was so much energy to it. The kids were so excited that it was Shabbat. They dress in white. And like, I don't know, just the teacher that was there, she had such enthusiasm for it, and she would sing songs, and she brought her excitement for Shabbat to the school. This is them, the Shabbat Ima and Abba. And we got to be with them and celebrate Shabbat together with them, which was very special.
You had to see this little girl, like this,
saying all the blessings. It was very, very sweet. And then in the same day, we went right after to Rahel Azan's school. And she has a spectacular school there, and I've been in communication with her since. She does really cool things with the community that's around her, and she's really changed the community through her school. And she basically every week or every other week she has people coming in, whether they're like students, like these first graders here, or like people in the community who help with gardening projects, they help with recycling projects. And for me, that really connected with Shabbat, because strengthening your community and like having that bond that's real with the kids it like adds to the specialness of the experience. And this font came out wonderful. But the biggest thing that I took out of Shabbat in Israel was that it's about mindfulness and being with those that you love, and trying to bring that mindfulness to your preschool and to the way the children think about the things around them. And I have a handout here. If you guys are interested, it's all different ideas about celebrating Shabbat in the classroom and how that can be expanded and hopefully add one or two things to your practice that might, yeah. If you have any questions, you can look over it. We do a lot of these things at our school. And yeah.
Just that you know, the structure today, that we're going to have about more than half an hour later on to go and talk to each one of them next to their presentations. So you can continue the conversation and learn more about what they're doing. So don't worry that you won't have this time. It's built into what we're doing. I also including on the Shabbat table, I gave a workshop last summer at New Cage about Shabbat and Havdalah. So I have copies that I brought to you, some songs for Shabbat, so if you like, and also text about Shabbat, the first text from the book of Genesis, Bereshit, about the creation of Shabbat and how Shabbat came in place. And Shabbat actually wasn't just for Jews. The first story in the Bible, it was before Jews they came, before they were even, it was the first thing that was created and became kadosh, holy, and it wasn't again just for the Jews. So the idea that Judaism and part of Jewish tradition, that Shabbat is a very essential part of it, shouldn't necessarily just stay with the Jewish people. It's something that the idea of having a day of rest, the idea of having a day to learn, a day to invest in yourself, being with the community, being together, this is for every human being, and not just for human being. I actually included also texts from the Ten Commandments. Both in the Ten Commandments appear twice in the Torah, and we studied some of these texts when we were in Israel. It's also for your slave and for your animal, for everyone. The Shabbat is for everyone. So I want you to think about it. Again, it doesn't matter if you are a Jewish, born Jewish, or Jew by choice, or non-Jew. This is something that we can all connect to. We all need the day of rest. And we just finished Passover, and I said that I think we're more slave than ever. We're constantly working, we're teaching, we're checking text all the time. Parents come home, they don't have time to their kids, they constantly check their computer. So Shabbat is even more needed than ever, I would argue. So this is also for you. We have extra copies, so help yourself. I want to invite now Julie. And Julie, this is her.
I was one of the lucky ones. I got to go twice.
So Julie came with me the first time in 2014. It was her first time in Israel that time, but she got the bug.
No, you always go wanting to go back for more.
Yes. So thanks to Julie in some way, I designed a seminar that will be very different. Because I said if she's coming again, she needs to see different things so she can bring to her school different experiences. So I would say that about 90% of our seminar this time was different.
Yes, most of the places were different.
Yeah.
The things that I saw again, I loved. And the first time I went, I put myself on this crusade I was so impressed with the handmade things that people made to use as teaching tools. You know, instead of looking up in the Lakeshore catalog or a discount school supply, everything was handmade. So I have been working like that. And then 2 years ago, the Israelis came to us, and I met this lady named Eddie Applebaum. And unbeknownst to me, she was the guru of preschools in Haifa. and we all went to her class.
I'm coming,
And it's
coming,
a
sorry.
beautiful, beautiful school. I'm showing, this is Eddie, right here. And she has a beautiful STEM center. And Rachel has always been saying, you know, you should see what Eddie's doing with the kids in her school, and the work that Eddie's doing is amazing. I said, I have to get to this lady's school. I must see it. So we all went together. This is Eddie today. And the classes there, the children, there are way more children in the classrooms. There's maybe like 30 kids in the class. And it is so organized, and every place in the room has its special place to do things. And there's vertical activities, horizontal ones. They use the back of the bookcase. They have special nooks where 5 children can go in and play something. They have a talking chair to talk things out. The giraffe.
Yes, Fata giraffe.
To work out problems between 2 kids. They have them talk it out. So what I
Very interesting approach. We will think about bringing it here. It's very, very
Yes.
interesting approach.
The giraffe doesn't make a sound, you know.
No, but the chairs are set up, and that is where you go if you have an issue with someone. And it's very peaceful. And all the kids, there's so many children, but it seems a lot more organized than my classroom in school. And each activity can be played and done without the assistance of a teacher. So, wait, can you just show the last one? So we went in the school, and the
other one,
soda
sorry.
caps. This is a sign-in board over here, and these were like Pepsi, like soda cap bottles with Hebrew letters in them. And this is how you signed in to show that you were here. You find your name. So I cannot do that in my class, but I said I could make a game. I could make a game where kids could do it. And it's like on Velcro, and so I have some fairy godmother who keeps leaving me Snapple lids. I don't know who it is in my school, but I come back and there's like a whole, someone knows I collect them. So the other thing that
I think we have this one first
Okay.
in the slideshow.
Okay, so
Do you
then
want
the
this
other-
one? Sure.
The other game was, this was on the back of a bookcase, and they had it with pipe cleaners so you could pull it. I mixed it up because I didn't want the kids in my class to cheat because they knew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mixed it up on them. So this was just a simple game. It's a sensory thing where you put a blindfold on, and 2 kids can play it, and you play it by feeling. And I used it in my school. I passed it around to the other classrooms, and it's on a board, and I stapled it just for to transport it. But you can mix all the numbers up so the kids, so they don't know the order. But they have it on the back of, these are the kids in Israel playing it. And this is the kids in my classroom playing it. And they love it. They loved it.
And
So
that's
that
another nice thing. We have a Facebook group that sometimes will share a picture from the classroom. And very often we see teachers duplicating what they see. And I remember one time a teacher said to me, I said to her, when I visited school, I said, go and post it there so she will see that you copied it. She said, but I copied it. I said, that's the idea.
That's the
This
thing,
is a
and they
sharing
love
place.
it. I wrote to her and said I stole your idea, and she wrote right back to me. I said it was her idea and I even wrote to her to give her credit. But they like that. So we did, with the teachers play it, the kids play it. Then this was where, about their families, and then I converted it to, our art unit came on the heels of our trip, so we read, there's an artist in Israel, one of our artists was Hanoch Piven, so we read The Purple Feather, and then everyone was given a purple feather, and you had to incorporate it into your picture as something, and this is just what some of the kids did with some of the items. it was a really, they loved it. It was fun. This is not the book, that's the book, but I just brought it to show you the kind of work that if you're doing an art unit, they love it. And you can do it on the floor like with a rope, and just have the items in a box to make all sorts of things. And you had to make the feather something in the picture. You know, a mustache, a tail. Then I went back to the bottle caps because I have a real lot of them. And as a morning activity, we all have these in our classroom. So then I just took more and I put it, and they sit on the floor and they love to match it. They love to match it up. It's easy. You can take it, you can put it in another classroom. So if anyone wants to give you bottle caps, you should take them.
And one last thing
The
that you learned
last
from
thing?
Etty. Yeah.
Oh, this was a really good thing. They had a loom, and this loom, they would like wheel it out to recess. They'd have it in the room, and they were threading it with. It looked like like a T-shirt that someone had cut. It was all recycled. This is not my real loom. I brought this for easy transport. But if you have a table like a Thomas table where you can take the middle out, you can go and get. This is fence, like where you portion off a property, and you can use all sorts of things to weave with. But they had this, and this is the kids, and we use ribbon. For some reason, they like it better when it's better ribbon, or when I place it in a certain place in the room. And then they also had it on a tree. So there were a few of those set up. So they have it outside and inside. There's lots of good stuff to do. But yeah, they wheeled it right out the door, and like, I would never think of doing that. And then the last thing, we saw at Hadassah Hospital, the windows. So we had these clear pieces of, I don't know what they were used for, but everybody made one. And then we got an obstacle course that was, you had to punch the pieces out of the foam, and they threw these away, except I took them out of the garbage and I spray painted them. And this is, we used, we showed them Marc Chagall's work, and then we used those magnet tiles, the clear ones, and we put them up on the window to show them, you know, how they're transparent. And we put these together to make our window. And against the window, it really does look like a window. I just have no place to put it up.
Yeah.
Do I have anything else?
No, that's excellent. Thank you.
So you should always use all your free stuff, and if anyone wants to give you anything, or I have people coming to the room, you know, they're not even in my class, and they know how many I need 15 bottles, or they give it and all washed nicely, and you should use it.
It's nice. Thank you. And you will see in the end of the program, you actually have Sharing Israel with Kids that Amy Blotner and Kate Schulman, they're not going to present, but they have a table with lots of other ideas. And also Kate did beautiful things with Chagall with the children. Amy. But later on, you can have the opportunity to stay with her. Also, Lena created Using Agriculture to Instill Jewish Identity, that later on, when we have free time, you can go and look and ask her more questions. I'm going to invite now Jerry. And Jerry is the director of Aleph Bet Daycare. And it took me about 3 years not to convince him. I think to convince him to come took like one meeting. Yeah, one meeting. No, we needed because of the video. To talk to him was only like one meeting. To change, I think that the school will accept it. It will become part of the culture of the school and all of that. It took a few more years. But it was one of the best gifts to have you part of our seminar. The richness of the conversation, asking really deep questions. It's not just about going to Israel and, okay, now I can teach about the Kotel and I can teach about this. Why Israel? What's really important? And Jerry is very philosophical, like really took things like in a deeper place. It wasn't just like how to bring things. So I invited him to talk a little bit about lessons for educator. A couple of things that really changed the way we look at things. So Jerry.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank Rachel and Lina for taking on this tour and the whole group. I've been to Israel before. I spent 2.5 years there as a student, and and I was wondering what I was going to get, what I was going to learn new, what I could bring back. Well, it was more than I could imagine, and it was thanks to the group. I've been around preschool teachers now since about 1988, but this group, they're collecting things off the airplane to make our projects. We're walking around, they're picking things off the trees, and they taught me how to appreciate what was going on in the classrooms, because they had the same creativity as these teachers, and that was one of the great things about this trip, which I highly recommend, is learning from each other. First, I learned from the 10 people and the madrichim, the leaders of the trip. I learned from them by seeing that, like that first night, I saw. We didn't even know each other, but yet everyone poured out their values and what they expected from this experience. It was very emotional, and it solidified us for the rest of the trip, where we traveled together as a unit, going to different places, and then we came to Haifa, and we met people that we couldn't totally always talk to completely because of the language barrier. But as soon as we got down on the floor and did yoga, and then we did an art project where we imagined what we looked like in the womb, and then we had art as the language, and we were close with them for the rest of the group. So that being together with people with a similar background but yet very different, and this was the first time where I got to meet other people that. In Israel, I got to meet Bedouin for the first time, and Druze. We went to a house and had a dinner that was prepared for us. It was like a restaurant, but it was homey. And a person explained to us about Druze, their religion, and I knew none of that. So that was very opening. Like Rachel said, it was Am Yisrael. It was everyone together, and that was our group. Also, what I learned was that Israel has more of a municipality that puts money, especially Haifa, and this allows what, like Rachel was saying, is that there's a unified curriculum in the city. Every class I went to, I saw a red umbrella because there was 2 art specialists there, and they had just started to learn to collaborate. They used to do things separately. Now they work together. They brought in all the children there to do an art project, and I think the teachers built upon it, and you would see that art in the classroom. And I know one of the directors here, when they went to Israel, they saw that and decided on an art specialist. And then I was talking to Rachel. We were in Haifa. We were talking about Eti. I saw Andrea and Eti. They stayed up most of the night comparing their notes. They were so excited. I had to go to sleep. So at that science school, they had a young person, in their 20s, 30s. They were studying to be a doctor, and she had these spoons that would change color in water, and there was as many children here, and they sat pretty much like you are right now as this person talked, but she made it active. It wasn't as hands-on as I'm used to, but they got to dip the spoons in and see, and she taught them critical thinking. And so what I'm learning from this is my school's in Cambridge, MIT is right down the street, within yelling distance. Well, Rachel gave me the idea that I haven't done it yet, but she gave me the idea to approach someone there and find out who is teaching these scientists that are going to teach young children, and I could have them come to the school and run projects as experts. And what a way to combine the two communities that never talk to each other. So that's what I wanted to share with everyone today. I just want to say this was the best professional development I did in my life. And once again, I highly recommend it to anyone thinking about it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I said it earlier, I'm constantly learning. So for me, it's also professional development. Even though we sit together, we have a vision, I talk to the Israelis, we have a vision with them, I constantly learn new things. I constantly grow. So there's lots of preparation going into it, but the moment that I'm in Israel with the group, I'm one of the group and I'm a student. So I really enjoy it. So I'm very thankful for CJP for running the Boston Haifa and for me leading it. It's really a privilege. And I want to invite now Cindy Yanofsky. Cindy is teaching at Salomon Schechter Day School, and she's teaching second and third grade. And she's a good friend of Julie, and she joined us. And again, was the perspective of having people with different approaches, what make our seminar so rich. To have someone teaching older kids, so perspective where they're going and where they're coming from. To have a director that's looking at things differently. We had, as I said, a couple, they were Mormons from Oklahoma, to talk about religious education. It doesn't matter in which faith you are, but what are the values, what do you try to teach your children, spirituality. A couple of years ago, Lindsay and Marceline came with me, and we had half of the group were science professionals. And it was also totally different way of looking at it. Melanie is going to talk later on about the playground in Israel. I remember we went to this junk playground. The preschool teacher were like with this kind of face, like, what's going on? But regulation, and we can do these kind of things. And the science professional came with this big smile. Wow, this is where we want to be. And sometimes you need this conversation between two people and come and say, what are we actually doing? Do we as preschool teacher really know what's the right thing in the long run when the kids are older? Do we need to talk to the people that see the kids when they're a student or later on and be part of the conversation? And that's why we constantly need to get out of our bubble of just the early childhood and really expand and have conversation with other people, with students. I know that I'm involved with students at UMass Amherst. I'm a board member at Der Hillel. So talking to students in different ages and seeing where this journey takes them. So it will inform us of what we're doing in the beginning of the journey. So Cindy.
Okay, set me up. While we're putting this together, I just want to say, yes, you mentioned my friend Julie, the artist, as you see. Julie and I met when our children were in birth class, so I've known her. We have 26-year-olds, and yeah, are they 27? No, they're going to be 27. We both do this all the time. Anyway, and I have had the privilege of working with Julie a while ago at Gan Shalanu as a preschool teacher, and I got my master's, and then I'm now teaching in the upper grades, second, third, and fourth. Right now, second and third.
Same school, but
yeah, same school, but different locations. And what Julie had told me about this trip was that it was a highly educational trip, and I'm thinking, but it's preschool. Come on. What you see here is just a tip of the iceberg of what we did when we were away. And Rachel did make it so applicable to me as a teacher that was of a little bit older children. But what was magnificent is, and Jerry really said this, is that all of us together have all of these thoughts, and we're willing to share and open up and be not only comrades in having fun, which we did, but in deep thought, deep critical thinking about our practice, about what we're seeing. Rachel brought in some even acting kind of program. I won't say much about it, but we learned from so many people in ways that we didn't even anticipate that caused us to have this amazing reaction and conversation to learn about the people in Israel and what are the different elements that affect them. And I know for me, wanting to teach Israel in my class, I'm always looking to see what is it that connects me and why should my children feel connected to Israel. What is it? I mean, we tell them, you know, it's theirs, but why is it? Why is this place so important? So the thing that I'm going to focus on and talk to you about is a little bit of the science. And we did a number of science adventures when we were there. One of them that I think is very applicable to the timing now and also to preschool children is the you want to back up for 1 second? Is the Nitafim drip irrigation factory. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. First, what I want to say, though, is this story that I'm going to tell you about this place. It's on a kibbutz, and I will give you the history in just a moment. But the thing that I think relates to us is that we try to teach children here about conserving water and thinking about what do you need to grow. And many of them do planting now, or just did around the time of Tu B'Shvat. And we're thinking of, you can go to the next one, thank you. We're thinking of how do we get vegetables? Where do they come from? Farms. Well, to make a connection to Israel, to understand that to make land like a desert grow and to actually see it through the videos that I'm going to show you, and that's what we did when we were there, we now understand the very complex kind of hosing and irrigation systems that Israelis, that we can be very proud of, have developed that are used across the world, which I'll share with you in just a moment. So with children, we can say to them, we need water, right? We all need water. What do we need? What do we need to grow? We need water. We need nutrients. Where do we get them? Well, it rains. Well, what if it doesn't rain very much? What if we're living near a desert? We just had here in Massachusetts a drought. So what are we going to do about water? We still need it. Well, we have some, but how can we make sure we don't waste any? Oh, well, we'll turn the faucets off, right? But that's not going to help in the ground. What do we do? Well, maybe we'll be careful when we water. You're going to see some careful when we water pictures. It's not so easy. So what do we do? Let's see what the Israelis did, and it is magnificent. So I want to go to the next slide. Okay. So what they did is they brought the water and nutrients right to the roots of the plants. Okay, we children, our little children can understand roots and bringing the water right to nutrients. What does that mean? I'm going to show you. Let's see. Okay, so here we are in the United States. This is how we bring water to the roots. We throw a lot of water around, and wow, yeah, this area here is going to get a lot of water because there are two sprinklers. And what about over here? Not so much. Oh, that's too bad. Can we go to the next one? Oh, this looks even better, right? But think of how much water we're wasting. I mean, on the one hand, we're thinking this is terrific. We're really giving the land a good washing, a good thirst quenching bath. But we're wasting a lot of water. So they can't afford to waste water in Israel because it's a desert. Okay, so what do we do next? We figure out through a company, and I'm just going to tell you a little history of this company, which is just magnificent. Okay, so there in about 1946, there was, actually wait, I'm going to back that up. 1935, there was a scientist who wasn't actually the friendliest of gentlemen, and he loved to observe. And this is something we should tell our children. Look at everything. You know, when you were thinking about watering a garden, you never thought about how a sprinkler actually throws the water in a lot of places, or throws it on the sidewalk. Or you run it and now the sidewalk's getting nicely watered and it doesn't grow. So we could tell our children, so what this gentleman did is he was looking at things that were growing. He noticed there was a particular orange tree that grew beautifully. And he's thinking, now why is that one growing better than the rest? And then he looks and he discovers that there was a broken pipe right near it that was dripping. So not spraying it with a lot of, just dripping water. Okay, he realized, he writes that down in his notebook for a later thought. Think about that in 25 years. I'll come back to it. Okay, so then what happens? The kibbutzim decide they need to, and the government decides in 1946 they need to start establishing places in the Negev because we want to say this is our land. They put 11 kibbutzim in the Negev, and one of them, Nitafim, tries for 10 years to grow. Can't grow anything. They water, they do terrible. They're thinking they have to get out of the business. What are they going to do? Ben Gurion comes to them and says, "You're not leaving." "No, you're not leaving. We need you here. You have to make this work." They have someone that comes to them and says, "We've discovered all this desert. You've got about a meter's worth of salt. Salt, you have to take that off. You take that off, things are going to grow." And meanwhile, things started to grow. So this particular kibbutz started to be successful. Alrighty, then what happens? They get tired, they're getting older. They decide, we have to bring in money. We have to think of a way to connect to agriculture, but not be so physical. So what can we do? And we want to make money. We want to be able to send our children and so forth, and we want to stay here and live and prosper. That scientist, the guy that wasn't so friendly, they bring him back. And he discovers, his notes that he was thinking and observing all that time, he figures out that there's this little, and I wish I had given out all my little samples, but I'm going to show you this little sample. It's about a plastic piece that's about this big that they put in the hoses that regulates how much pressure. So when the water comes out, it's actually coming out in drips, and it's spaced all across these miles of pipes. And the piping you're going to see is maybe about this far from each other, depending on the land and what you're planting. And it makes, want to go to the next one? It makes these bubbles. And so when there's a hose that's running here and running in between, and I'm going to show you how it's done. But there's a bubble here that then it sends up like a drip, like a big bubble drip underneath the ground, and it goes right to the roots, exactly how much. And they designed these little clips. So how well do they do? They have 28 sub-companies. They're in 105 countries. And they solve problems of watering all over the world. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of a couple of clips just so you can see how they do it. And this would be something that you could show your children. I try to pick out parts that would be really exciting for preschool. Okay, so we're building the machinery. We're putting things together. Okay, we're going to jump to another part. You could see that they were running lots and lots of hoses under the ground. And here we go. These are the hoses. These are the hoses that have the little clips inside.
Typically, we'll pull about 6 to 7 feet out of the bottom of the machine in order
This is about 3 minutes, this video, but I wanted to cut it for our purposes.
to take off. In this case, we have 7 fins, so we like to have 3 people on the plow.
And look at how many lines of hosing is going underneath the ground. I wouldn't have thought there was so many, but that's what it is. And
When we turn on the pump, the water is pulled up from the well, goes through a chemical check valve, and then through a water heater. An injection pump adds fertilizer and/or crop protection chemicals.
you can see the water flowing through.
Mix and sediments that are often found in surface water and/or well water from entering and clogging the drip wells.
So a big part of what they do is make sure things don't clog.
Will serve as a backup layer filtration to the saline filtration. At this point, the water leaves the filtration setup, passes through the field riser valves, and then to the drip lines that are buried below the surface.
We don't have to know all these words, and the kids don't either.
Are determined based
We just want to see this.
on it takes the fully pressurized system. Final step, once everything is installed with the system, is to make sure that we don't have any leaks.
That's it.
That's it for this one?
Yeah.
So you can see that bubble that is coming up from under the ground. Now I'm going to just show you some, which is also fun that they have on their site, which is so how does the plants grow? And I think it's really kind of nice. Yep. And you have the spots for that one. Somebody has to make a little money, So this one's really cool. This is about actual growing. So they have to look at the soil type, where the water is. Oh, that would have been a good idea. The kind of land that you're dealing with. And here you can see they give you a little bit more of the dimensions. So for older children or children who are a little more sophisticated, there's the little clip. It's only that big. This is going to be fast growing. Now they're going to go under like in cartoon animated. See, it's one drip and then it spreads out. And you can see how it, in the side view, how it's just circling out that much and the roots come down and get it. And of course, these are all things that you could talk about to help them to understand. So what's amazing for us is to not only have this system that was created in Israel, but a system that's now shared around the world to help others, to show that that's where we are leaders, and we're part of it because we support Israel, and that's one of the reasons why we want to support Israel, is this great ability to invent and create and then share it around the world, and that's so we become, all of us, part of that community. And so I was thrilled to be on this trip, and I'm thrilled to have been able to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it was actually very nice when we were there. We met Itzik. He is the kibbutz. It's the name of the kibbutz is actually Chatzerim. Netafim is the name of the company. That's okay. And we had this blog with over 2,000 followers or something like that. And Susie is writing, I know Itzik. I used to volunteer in this kibbutz. So Susie Rodenstein is a professor here at Hebrew College. She was my teacher as part of my master. So thank you so much. And it was just fun, when we had this blog, to have all of these people following us. So I'm going to invite now Melanie to join us. And Melanie is going to talk a little bit about playgrounds in Israel and risk-taking. And for Melanie, it was also first time in Israel. So it was a pleasure. We shared a room most nights. So we also had like a very long conversation until very late at night about education, about life, about everything. So it was a pleasure.
So this was my first trip to Israel, as everyone on the trip knows, because I said it daily. This was a lifetime dream for me, something I've always wanted to do on my bucket list. I did it for myself for a special birthday that I had in August, and I was so fortunate to have found this trip with teachers. I knew I wanted to go to Israel, but this was above and beyond because it combined two of my loves, which is early childhood, my passions, early childhood, and the Judaism part of it to one trip. So it was fabulous in that way. So the thing that I wanted to bring back was talking about risky play in playgrounds. For some reason, that really piqued my interest. And we went to a playground. I don't know where it was. It was like a 15-minute stop from the bus, the one with the long slide, the tall slide. I don't know what. Yes. So Sabrina and I were walking around and we saw these structures like I had never seen before in the United States. They were tall, they were interesting, they appealed to me visually, and they were so challenging. You could picture an older child doing it. They were 4 stories high of this slide that was like so interesting to me visually and as a teacher. And Sabrina said, that reminds me of the marble runs, the ball runs. So I thought, first of all, I printed off a few pictures of the slides, and my first thought was, wouldn't it be nice to put that on a table or on the floor with the marble runs as an invitation to play or a provocation to make something that looks like that slide. So that was my first thought. And then that took me into a whole other thing that I started thinking about risk-taking in playgrounds, and about how different the playgrounds were in Israel than the ones that we have in the United States. The junkyard playground was something like you said, that I went, like, this would never happen, number one. Where are the regulations? What's going on? And it made me feel like I wanted to learn. So when I was given this opportunity to speak here, I did a lot of research on risk-taking in playgrounds. And one site led to the next, to the next, to the next. And I kept learning more and more, and it was really interesting. So what I found out was that until the 1980s, playgrounds in the United States were more risky than they are now. In the 1980s, all of a sudden, we had all of these regulations, and we had the fear of being sued, and we had a lot of parents that were much more invested in children's safety. So children weren't going out and playing in the local stream or here, there, and everywhere in the neighborhood. All of a sudden, things were very structured, and they were very rigid about safety. So playgrounds became here kind of boring and kind of sterile. And if you have children in your classes that are looking for a challenge, they do things that will give them the challenge. So you find yourself saying, stop doing that. Don't pick up the stick. You could poke your eye out. You could, that sort of thing. So I want to kind of add one anecdote. And I guess this is what I took away from the whole thing, is that we need to, as early childhood educators, ask why. We're not going to have junkyard playgrounds in our schools here. It's just not going to happen. We have too many regulations. However, what we can do is start to think about what we're saying to young children and why we're not letting them take any risk at all. So I was in the toddler playground. I was a lead toddler teacher, and every day the toddlers, the older toddlers particularly, 2.5, would climb up the slide every day, up the slide, up the slide, up the slide. Every day the teachers would say, don't climb up the slide, go up the steps, and we'd pull the kids down. And 2 seconds later, they'd be going back up the slide. Every day, day after day after day. And we never questioned, why were we doing this? Why did we have that rule, don't climb up the slide? They could do it. They were clearly doing it every day, and until we told them to stop. So we finally got together in a group and we said, why aren't we letting them climb up the slide? And they said, well, they could bang their chin on the top of the slide. Well, has that ever happened? No. Well, no, it really hasn't. Well, they could slide down if they don't know how to do it, if they're not. Well, has that ever happened? Well, no, not really. So the kids were doing it, and we as the teachers were the ones that were having the problem, because they could clearly manage that. Their little bodies wanted to practice their upper body strength, and we didn't have anything on that toddler playground to help them with that. There were no monkey bars. There was nothing that they could climb, nothing for them to use their upper body strength. They were trying to seek that out by climbing up this slide that we kept telling them no. So we rethought it, and we let them climb up the slide, and it was so much more pleasant. Nobody was saying no all the time. The kids were happy. Nobody got hurt. If they did, it was a little bump that they would have gotten anyway. The other thing that is sticks. Don't play with sticks. You could poke your eye out. I mean, we don't usually see that. Maybe we wouldn't want them to run with sticks, but to sit in the sand and to poke, that's pretty safe. So what I'm urging all of us to do, and what I came from this research that I did, is to ask why. Make sure that you talk to the staff in your school, see if there's a real reason, document it, see if there's been any accidents. If there's not been accidents and the kids are wanting to do it, maybe it's just what they need to do, and maybe they do need to add a little element of risk to their play. Here I wrote a risk-benefit assessment. So that's kind of a fancy word for just saying what we did, which was asking yourself why. Are the benefits of poking in the dirt with a stick more important than the risk of it. So get together, look at it, document, see the kids, let them try it, or give them the rules. If they're a little bit older, you can tell them these sticks are for this area only. We're not going to run with sticks, but you can use them for this particular reason. So, do it thoughtfully, I guess, is the way that is what it came from. So with all of our rules and all of our fears, we're not going to be able to talk parents into junkyard playgrounds, I'm sure. However, I think we can add a little bit of an element of risk and an element of challenge to what we have here by thinking it through a little bit more. And the other point is that children don't know their own bodies anymore because we're not giving them the opportunity to learn what their bodies can do and what their bodies can't do. So you picture a little creek of water with a log over it, and a child decides that they want to climb over. Now the water is very shallow, so they're not going to get hurt. But they have to be able to assess whether their body, whether their balance is good enough. If it's not, they'll fall into the little bit of water and no harm done. If it is, they'll get to the other side and they'll feel really proud of themselves. If the water were really deep, you would do the risk-benefit analysis and say, no, I'm not going to let you do that. You could get hurt. Because our jobs are ultimately to keep children safe, but sometimes we say no without even thinking about it. So the last quote that I'm going to say is, over the past 60 years, we have witnessed in our culture a continuous, gradual, but ultimately dramatic decline in children's opportunities to play freely without adult control, and especially to play in risky ways. Over the same 60 years, we have also witnessed a continuous, gradual, but ultimately dramatic increase in childhood mental disorders, especially emotional disorders. So it's not necessarily saying that that is the only reason, but I think taking risk out of children's play makes them a lot less confident and a lot less able to trust their own abilities. And here's a handout about, can playing with junk lead to creativity and innovation?
We have more copies.
Have you seen the video from New Zealand? It was posted a couple of weeks ago.
Somebody just told me about
And
that.
all the kids are just like soaking wet in the rain. That's what exactly I think you're referring to.
Yeah.
I thought about it the whole time.
The other thing that's risky is tools, using real tools, and teaching kids how to do that rather than using the pretend ones. And you might get pushback from parents. You will get pushback from parents. So that's where I say the benefit and risk, and teaching children how to use things. All of these playgrounds that are adventure playgrounds have things called play workers. So they have people that are stationed at various places that understand how children play. So there's a few adventure playgrounds in California, but many more in Europe. So none in the United States other than the couple in California.
The museum brought the movie at the beginning of the year about in England.
In England, the fire, the one with the fire and all that. The thing is something about parents. From my experience and talking to other directors and other teachers, if the teacher and the directors is coming from a place of knowledge,
Right,
and educating the parents why this is actually the good thing for their kids, there is a trust and they are okay with some things. When they try to push certain things, but they find that nobody's in the other side is knowledgeable and coming with the support to what they're trying to do, then they can actually push.
Yeah.
The problem is, again, when we were talking, sometimes we don't have the experienced educators for many, many years with lots of knowledge. When the parents come and said, why are you doing this? They don't know. They said, okay, I can do that. It's the same with reading. Why can't my kids read when they are 3? So some teacher will immediately bring papers and will try to teach the kids how to read. But a knowledgeable educator will come and say, this is really not age appropriate. And here is an article about the development of the brain. And this is what's important right now to do with the kids. So this is in some way coming. The last thing, when my daughter started college, after a week, they got a memo of how to cross streets. Because apparently many of these college students got into the car in their parents' driveway and they were dropped at school. They didn't know how to walk in the street. And for me, I use it, some of you probably heard me saying this before. But this is in some way to come and ask ourselves, what damage are we doing to our kids by overprotecting them? So thank you for bringing this, Melanie. That was very important. The last presentation we'll do very fast because we want to allow you some time to enjoy and have this conversation with one-on-one. So Andrea is here again. Andrea, when she came back to school, she actually, her director, Ronit, they designated a space in the opening of the school, and every 2 weeks, Andrea's goal is to change the activities for the children and their family to come and explore and explore Israel together. So you can come and share.
So I won't take up too much of your time. I know you guys have been sitting and are tired. The biggest question for me when I got back from this trip is how am I going to share this with my co-teachers, with my families, with the children? How do I bring back what I've learned and share it with them and make them as passionate about it as I was on the trip? So my co-teacher in my class has actually been wonderful in helping me. She's from Israel, so she's been giving me a great insight on things that I may not have had as much knowledge about. And one of the first things that we did, flag of Israel clearly, and under each of the flaps are just little facts and information about Israel. Our goal is to target, at my school, we have a very large contingent of Israeli families. So we weren't so much targeting those families, but the families that may not know as much about Israel or may not know the basics about Israel. So that was where we went. After that, and I don't want to take up too much time, I want to kind of get to the meat of the stuff. And over there in the middle table, we spent 4 weeks traveling the Israel National Trail. If you don't know what the Israel National Trail is, it starts up all the way up in the Golan Heights, and it's a trail that you can actually hike down all the way to Eilat. It takes about a month and a half to hike it. And that's what we did. We explored it. Our little leopard friend, you can see the little icon of the leopard, was kind of our catalyst for getting on this trip. And what we did is as we went through each section, as you're walking on the trail, when you're walking through each section, there's the white section, which are the mountains, the blue section, which is near the water, and then the orange section, which is the desert. We learned different information about each area. We learned about plants, we learned about animals, we learned about history and mosaics and digging, and there's so much different information out there. We tried to pick bits and pieces that we were interested in, that we knew that the kids would be interested in, and we knew that the families would be interested in. I've heard a little bit of feedback. It's right outside Ronit's office, so she gets to hear a lot more than we do, but I've had a couple of comments from parents who've said that they really like being able to stop at the end of the day on their way out and kind of take a couple of minutes to read something to their child that they can then have a conversation about in the car. It's a shared moment for them that they're now learning together about something that they may not have had before. This is something that we're planning on doing hopefully throughout the year. Every week, every other week, we're changing it. And we're also planning the curriculum around the holidays. So we linked the desert area to Pesach, to the Red Sea. We're now down in Eilat with the Red Sea. So there's a method to our madness, if you will, in how we're trying to connect everything. But the most important thing for me is really sharing this with my community and how I can make them learn with me. So thank you again to Rachel and Lena. It really has been an amazing experience.
Thank you. And I ask Andrea, every time that we have a group that's working together, we usually work together for about 2 years, 2 or 3 years, so it's not just going to Israel and coming back. There's many seminars leading to it, several events after, so it's an ongoing process. When I saw her starting to do that, I said, let's devote a blog so we can document this. So every 2 weeks when you're doing it, take good pictures and we can help you to post it. So it won't just stay at the JCC, how can we spread it with other communities? Or maybe to develop curriculum from that. So I want to thank all of you, all of the presenters, all of my new friends that we truly deepen our friendship and I learn from. Some older friends that we met on this journey. And for some of you that I don't know, that hopefully I'll get to know you more in the next years. So please, there is some food, enjoy, and stay around and ask questions about all of these presentations. Thank you.